Buongiorno, buon pomeriggio, and buonasera, Lazio world. Welcome to our instant reaction pod. Consider this a little bit of stoppage time, which we could most certainly use a little extra as we continue to chase a match that completely got away from us. We are here to review Juve Lazio. I'm your host, Sean McIntosh, joined always by Caleb Adams. Caleb, here we are again. 3 out of 4 matches into the season. Disappointed once more. How you feeling?
Obviously disappointed, especially considering the result against Napoli, right? We played arguably the hottest team before the international break and put up a good performance. And then we return back from international play and we put up a performance like that. So obviously disappointed.
So look, let's just quickly review this. It's a 3-1 loss. We're playing in Turin against Juventus. We start the match real shaky. Not even 10 minutes in, we concede on what a ton of Lazio fans are claiming a very questionable call. Look, the still photos online are always going to cause a ruckus. The ball looked to be out of bounds from still images. Now, I'm probably in the minority who thinks that the ball probably was in bounds. I messaged a couple folks, very similar to the situation with Japan and Germany in the World Cup. Folks tend to forget that the ball is a sphere and, captured by a certain angle, it can look out of bounds. And folks are really looking for the separation between the ball and the line, and they see a little bit of green and they assume the ball was completely out. But, we unfortunately, what Serie A does a poor job of, in the broadcast is showing any additional images that, put a little water on the fuel from fans. Had we seen some other images, I think we would have not seen as many upset folks. But, the technology is there. It was ruled that the ball was in. We got ourselves to blame more than anything. But, 10 minutes into the match, McKennie does well to keep a ball in, plays it in. I think we were probably a little unlucky, but right away we concede, and you see a little bit of panic in the team. Not long after, Federico Chiesa comes up big with a goal, short side on the keeper. You can argue whether or not Provedel should have done better. I thought, again, McKennie was involved in that play, but I see a lot of credit going around for McKennie, and I thought overall he probably played well for Juve. But again, a little unlucky. I thought he kind of poked the ball, maybe took a poor touch. Not sure it was an intentional pass, and fell to the right players. And it was just a tale of a really poor first half, and we'll obviously give our man of the match or our bidone and talk about that. But when we start the second half, we start a lot better. We look to be making a bit of a comeback with a brilliant Luis Alberto goal, only for moments later to concede again, to eventually drop this one 3-1. So Caleb, give me your 3 words or less to describe this match.
I went with one step back, and because I thought we took 2 steps forward against Napoli, and only 1 step back because I know it's a sucky result, but I don't think it's doom and gloom, and I also think it sort of reflects what we said in the beginning of the season, which was, hey, we're probably going to start slow. Like that, people's expectations need to be a bit tempered. We were excited for the season, but I know you particularly said before the start of the season that I think we're going to be a little slow to start. And I think this is a result of that. And of course, a result of just a poor first 15-minute spell, right? So 1 step back, meaning, we didn't build on what we did against Napoli. At the same time, though, it's not like it's unsalvageable, right?
Yeah, I think I'm probably going to sound a little bit more optimistic than a lot of Lazio Twitter right now, but and we'll certainly talk about our positives to take away from this. For me, 2 words: no edge. And in a lot of areas of this match, certainly our build-up play, our final third, just the mentality coming into this match. Juve was on the front foot it seemed as if we weren't ready for them to press. This is a different Juve than we've seen in years past. They were on the front foot. They were really aggressive. They played with a high line. We didn't seem to know how to respond. I will say I thought by and large, like, we were fairly organized. Again, a couple mistakes, a couple lapses, and we were punished. And so for me, it was no edge, particularly when you think about our decisiveness in the final third and our ability just to be clinical. And that was complete opposite to what we saw from Juve. I mean, when you simply look at the surface level stats, and look, the game of calcio is a lot more than what you see in stats and numbers. I mean, we had 16 shots, only 5 of those on target, which is certainly an area of improvement, but 64% possession. You can look at that as a fan and see some positives, but our inability to break through a defense is worrisome. Not anything that I would hit a panic button for, but certainly today you see our inability when we aren't on the counter and we're not running with the ball. There's just a lack of ideas, and for me, it's a lot of decisiveness. There were moments where I thought players played really well or made the right pass. Kamada, I thought, had a couple really great balls to play, and then we were just slow to make that second pass or take a quick shot. When you saw how Juve scored, I mean, the Vlahovic looked like the Vlahovic from his final season at Fiorentina, where he was, labeled a world-class and next up talent. That immediate one-touch strike that he had was something that we're missing, of just making quick decisions in the final third. So I think a lot of the gameplay was fairly balanced. Juve just tremendous job. And look, your Chiesas and Vlahovic's, who were either injured or completely out of form last year, look to be their old selves today. So just in all phases of the matches, for me, there was just no edge, from the mentality to some of the questionable, again, inability for Sarri maybe to win that coaching matchup, which he did last week or 2 weeks ago against Rudy Garcia. Failed to do so against Allegri. I mean,
I will say real quick, jumping in. This game for me was really kind of what we did to Napoli. We weren't necessarily, at the end of the game, we were creating a lot of chances because they had to go push for a goal, but we were just lethal in the few early chances we got, and that just kind of killed the game. And so it really felt like the opposite of what we did against Napoli. Juventus did to us. It also reminded me of the Lecce game in terms of the press. We just flustered by it. Lecce came out and pressed us hard at that game, pressed us high, and we just didn't know how to handle it, especially in those early stages and throughout the game. But yeah, like you said, I agree with all the points that you said. Is there were these one moments that they were just lethal in, and kudos to Juventus, Vlahovic, their players, for doing that. But the scoreline, I think, can be a bit skewed. It was just those first 25 minutes, it really just ended up deciding the game.
And we've talked about that prior, giving up matches by simply spoiling the first 20, 30 minutes of a match and making it a lot harder on ourselves. But, I love the comparison to the Napoli match, because we were quite fortunate in that Napoli match, right? Napoli came out on the front foot. They looked to be the more dangerous team. Provedel came up with a couple big stops. They were just short on a couple opportunities. You could say we kind of got lucky in some ways, and we escaped damage. And then very fortunate, very clinical, some brilliance from Luis Alberto, Felipe Anderson, put us in a position of advantage. Today, the game was not a lot different from what we saw. Started really poorly, looked to be in trouble. The difference here, Juve was clinical, and they made us pay for our lack of coming into this with anything less than a killer instinct. So for you, where did it all go wrong?
Oh, a lot of these games we've been talking about the midfield. Obviously, for me, the most clear thing, but it's kind of becoming a trend, unfortunately. But it's just starting out slow. It just went wrong with us. We're not locked in mentally at the beginning of games. we seem to be at a much slower pace and speed than the opposing sides are. The opposing sides look like they have a game that they're going to play. We don't realize we're in a game. We're in like a competitive game that matters until 20 minutes into a match, and it's become a bit of a trend where, like we say, man, we had a rough start, but hey, we started picking it up around 30th minute, 20th minute, halftime. This game was very much the same. Of hey, we didn't realize we weren't in preseason the first 15, 20 minutes, and then we realized like, oh snap, this game actually has weight, so let's actually play. But at that point, we're 2 goals down. So I also think that this isn't where it necessarily went wrong, but something that was interesting to me was that whereas our midfield in the past games that we lost, you said, man, our midfield was non-existent. You didn't beat us down the middle. They didn't. All their goals started out wide and came into the box. Stop. And they did not like just run through us down the middle. In this game, they started out wide. Every single one of their goals started out wide. And but no, it was just like we said before, just we didn't show up mentally in those early stages.
Yeah, I think the point about the midfield is a really, really good one because, as we're sitting there watching the match and trying to evaluate, which players are performing well and which ones are underperforming, those first few matches, it was all about the midfield. And I thought by and large, our midfield played okay. I thought 2 of the players in particular, and again, we'll get to the man of the match. I thought Luis Alberto and Kamada had pretty great matches. Cataldi, who we'll talk about, was non-existent again. But I think, it didn't necessarily lose us the match. It didn't win us the match. It didn't help in that regard. For me, it was so much about our inability in the final third. Yeah, we obviously you give up 3 goals in a match. That's never great, and it's often going to be looked poorly on the defense or the goalkeeping. I thought Provedel obviously came up big with a couple massive saves. Could have been worse than 3, but those were some really clinical finishes. Sure, we could have done better. I think the midfield does need to provide more support in defense. That 3rd goal I thought was embarrassing on the defense. Marusic, very, very soft. Romagnoli's there to help. You expect him to be able to make a play. One of the 2 to be able to make a play. And so I look at that one as absolutely disappointing individual calamities, but our inability to threaten when we have possession and when we're holding on to the ball, that to me is where we lost the match, because we score a goal and we just have no ability to threaten after that. And so we just made it really easy for you.
Yeah,
super predictable.
To be fair, we conceded that third goal was a killer. I mean, we actually were starting to have a good spell, and then the 3rd goal came in. I also thought the 2nd goal was pretty soft. McKennie ran across the top of the box completely free. He played one. I mean, it was completely free. Nobody contested him, and so Chiesa, had a great finish, but that ball should have never gotten to him to begin with, because McKennie literally just walked across the top of the box. And so just a bit of just soft moments of soft defending, and it's as you said, also the final third, when we started to click a little bit, we got a goal, and we'll talk about that later. But yeah, I think that's a good point as well. As we just, it's tough to us to break down teams right now.
Yeah, so let's talk about the players that shined a little bit. Who did you have as your man of the match?
I actually had Kamada as my man of the match today, and my reasoning behind this is, while Alberto scored the goal, I thought Kamada was really our most threatening player overall. And the only sort of chances that came at all in the first half were Kamada runs. I thought Kamada's runs, he's a little more aggressive in his running today. And I don't know if it's instruction or just him getting comfortable, but he has some really great runs that he was found in some cases, wasn't found in some other cases, but I thought he did really well in those runs. I thought he was threatening. He put in a nice cross here and there when he did receive the ball. Nobody was in the box at the time. He also was the one that applied pressure to Locatelli to force a mistake to open up Alberto. And and we'll talk about Ravella whenever we get there, but I thought he had a good connection to Ravella as well. I thought they were linking up really nicely, and he also had a great through ball in the second half to also create another chance. So I thought he had a really good game, and I thought he was one of the most consistent performer throughout the match, in my opinion.
Yeah, he was certainly one of the players in contention for me. I mean, he did so many things right. You mentioned putting the pressure, forcing the turnover that ultimately led to a brilliant goal by Luis Alberto. But for me, I have to hat tip the magician, Luis. He was spectacular. I mean, he did everything that you want to see from Luis Alberto. He, in Cataldi's absence, while he was physically there, he was, to me, Luis Alberto was playing that role of regista. He was the one dropping back. He was the one to start and initiate any sort of progressive movements. He was quite literally all over the pitch, and obviously, the one to find himself with a beautiful goal. Now, we've talked about this before, but important to say it again. While we love so much of what Luis Alberto brings, particularly on the offensive end, he is quite poor when it comes to set pieces, and that's another area when we want to talk about where a match is lost, when a team is struggling to break down a defense, and our bread and butter is when we can counter, when we can move and run, particularly with a player like Ciro Immobile, who had some nice runs and was fouled. And Kamada found him a couple times. He had a beautiful outside of the boot pass that forced Bremer to take down Ciro and was yellow carded. But I thought Luis, when it comes to set pieces, when we struggle, and then when we have some of those opportunities, we've got to take advantage. We've got to threaten, and we just end up not even just throwing those away, but we bring on more harm to ourselves because now we're in a position of trying to defend on a counterattack. So, again, for all his brilliance, that is an area of frustration. But I thought he stood out for me, particularly. I mean, really, it wasn't even just a first half thing. He was great in the first half. He continued that in the second. He was very commanding. He played with the ball at his feet and he initiated everything. So I thought Kamada definitely deserves a shout. Zaccagni was a lot better, particularly down that left flank. I mean, the first half, we did nothing on the right side. Felipe was invisible in that first half. Everything was going through the left side of the pitch. But as far as absolute standouts, it was pretty clear it was those two. And then in the second half, I thought the match changed for the positive with the introduction of Rovella. And unfortunately, the moment we conceded that third goal, you pretty much saw everybody put their heads down, and the match was over at that point. But let's talk about our bidone. Who for you was the poorest player on the pitch for Lazio?
I gotta go Cataldi again, man. I do, and I think Sadi thought this too because he subbed him right at the half, which is quite telling. And we'll talk about this when we talk about more pros and cons. But I thought that Cataldi was just non-existent again. I feel like so much of what Cataldi isn't so much that what he does wrong. It's like, where is he to begin with, right? That's kind of in this situation, in this game, how I felt with this performance. And going back to what we're saying, really the only two players, if something was going to happen, it was going to come from Alberto and Kamada, which is a shame and unacceptable when you have 9 other players on the field. 8 players, including the goalkeeper, right, on the field, right? When I personally felt that, hey, man, if anything is going to happen, it's going to come from these 2 players and these 2 players only this game. That's a problem, right? It's a problem. And so they did that in spite of Cataldi. And we saw them thriving a little more once Rovella did come into the match. And so that makes it even more impressive that they were able to stand out despite having sort of a handicap with Cataldi. And I think that Rovella, the main thing that I noticed was, and I tweeted about it, was he's so much hungrier for the ball. Like, he's so persistent about making himself available, being an option, combining quickly. Also looking for the progressive pass first. Sometimes Cataldi would just automatically resort to passing back to center back, but Rovella looks up really quickly. You can see in sort of his glances and looks over the shoulders that he's looking for that pass up front first. How can I progress this forward? Okay, let me pass it back now. He's much quicker making those decisions. It's just like this. It's just quick. And I think that plays really well into Kamada and Alberto, who are also quick players. It seemed to me that Cataldi is just like a level behind in terms of processing compared to those two. And we saw when Rovella came on that, oh yeah, this guy, he's right. He's up to that level. He's up to par. And there was a connection there. It was quick. It was much more dynamic. The midfield was fluid because Cataldi is just a bit behind in processing, whereas Rovella's up to those guys in terms of being able to quick play and make quick decision making.
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned his desire to receive the ball. I mean, quite literally, like animated, asking for the ball, clapping his hands, like very quick.
I love it.
Player, and you love to see that. 21 years old, his first appearance with Lazio in a huge match against his former club. You know, to me, he looks like all the makings of a leader. He's a true regista. Yeah. And I think he's going to, what I love about him is not just the leadership in that regista role with the ball at his feet, but directing and making movements and finding himself open for teammates and finding that open space without the ball at his feet. I think, just let's talk about the biggest positive we can take away. For me, that was it. See the difference we can make with a Rovella in the lineup. Yeah. And again, man, we got beat, and it was clear Juve was better today.
Yeah.
And I know it's a lot of doom and gloom out there, and I know we can look at these first 4 matches, and I've seen it already, right? 3 points. What are we at? We've got 3 points in 4 matches.
Yep, 3 and 4.
Not good. However, we played. If you would have told me you're playing Juve on the road, you're playing Napoli on the road, back-to-back matches, walk away with those with 3 points, would you take it? I would take it.
Yeah.
100%.
Absolutely.
Job done. And so you think about what we did last year, right? We won 8 matches against the top 6. Mm-hmm. We also lost some matches against them. We are on pace. We won 1 out of 2. We lost 1 of them against Juve on the road. So for me, we gave up two poor matches against teams that we should have won. Guess what? We did that last year too. We mentioned it. This team is going to be a little bit of work in progress. So when I look at the bigger picture, I step back, I still see positive signs. Kamada was better today than he has been. I think today was a great, and he was good last match too.
He was.
So Luis Alberto continues to be great.
Yeah.
Now we've seen the introduction of Rovella, and we've all wondered how he would look. Again, this wasn't a full match, but we saw moments that can really excite us. And for me, you got to think he's in the starting 11 for the next match. And so I see enough positives. Cheeto obviously was on an international break, and you see the trust that Sarri has in putting in someone like Tati in there. And I think we're going to be fine. There's work to be done, but I think when you step back and you look at our position, I think we'll be okay. We got to start winning some matches. You look at the road ahead, just looking at Serie A alone, we've got some winnable games. We got Monza and we've got Torino. Both at home.
Yep.
So of course you got to take care of business, and nothing is a guarantee, but this, for me, the judge of character of what this club is going to come in those matches. Yeah. Can we get results? Can we get big results? Can we get the job done? Because then we're going to play Milan at San Siro. So another big match. But these for me are must wins. And before we even get there, we've got a Champions League match against Atletico Madrid. So what do you take away from this one from a positive standpoint?
Yeah, I sort of got everything that you mentioned as well. I also think that a positive for me was Rovella, but more so that the subs that Sadi made, I think, are indicative to where he sees a team in the future, right? Maybe Pellegrini starting, Rovella starting. And so for me, that's very promising. I do think we are a better team with both those guys starting. I think we're more dangerous team. You know, we talk about unlocking the final third. So I thought he got his subs really well. I thought he got his subs well.
His subs for me, and I write this down every single time because I don't want to be that type of person that hindsight looks at the result and then criticizes a manager or
No,
why'd you make
no,
these
no,
subs. So I
yeah,
write it down every single time, and we have a sub. I kind of put my own thoughts and feelings on it, and really this season his subs for me have been spot on, and this was
yeah.
another one where I was like, right subs, right
I agree.
time.
I agree. Yeah, 100%.
Absolutely right time. I love to see it. I love that he's giving these young players opportunities. For me, you're spot on. I think the substitutions for me perfect. I have
Yeah.
no complaints.
I was really, really big fan of that. I love seeing sometimes, Sadi or coaches in general may be a little stubborn with some of their lineups, but I like that Sadi has shown early this season that, hey, if it's not working, he's gonna change it. He's patient to a degree, but he has shown that, you know what, clearly this issue we're lacking. Let's do something about it. We got new players, so let's use them, right? So that for me is a huge positive, and I think will only aid us as the season progresses here. And yeah, like I said, as you mentioned earlier, I think we're in good shape. I'm not too panicking. You're gonna lose these big matches against the big teams. You're gonna lose them. It's those little ones. It's those first two games where I was more upset about, right? Because you're gonna lose these away matches at these big teams, right? That it's gonna happen. You try your best, and yeah, we could have done better today. But we'll see how the team bounces back next week, particularly with Monza, and of course, Atletico Madrid is also could be a deciding game for that group. And we're at home that time, so we'll see how that goes. And for me, those are the pros as well.
I mentioned it. People are already panicking. They're upset. They're angry, rightfully so. It's never fun to walk away, after a 3-1 defeat and feel good about it. And I don't want to be, glossing over work that we have to do, but in terms of a panic meter, let's bring it out again. Just results alone, not looking great. Out of 10, where would you put your panic meter at?
I'm at a 4. I still believe that we're gonna have a bit of trying times and adaptation these early stages. I'll really start judging more harshly. I'll really start really being more critical in terms of analyzing. Once we're like 10 games in, right? Once we're 10 games in and we're losing against minnows, then the panic meter starts to get bumped up at that point, right? But yes, these results are unacceptable. Yes, especially the first two. Today, we could have done better. But we definitely shouldn't be panicking. We should not be panicking. But yeah, how about you?
I'm not panicking. A 2 or 3 on the meter. For me, it's all about the next 2 league matches.
Right. Same.
Whatever happens to Atletico, of course, I want the performance, want the players to come out there with the right intensity. I want to see a tight match, and of course I want to win the match, but for me it's just looking at mentality and how we go into that one. But
Yeah.
from a league standpoint, these next 2, I need to see results more than anything.
Yeah. Yeah.
While I want for this Champions League match against Atletico, Atletico is not a team that's flying high either.
No.
But for me, it's about mentality and performance. For the next 2 league matches, it's about results. And
Exactly.
we need to start clicking, and we need to be in a little bit of rhythm for Milan. But they're must wins for me. If we walk out of these 2 matches with anything less than 6 points, then I'll start to climb. I'll start to notch up that panic meter until we get to, I think 10 matches is a respectable and fair place, to truly evaluate. But I start to notch up that meter a little bit depending on what happens in these next 2 league
sure.
games. So again, we're getting some of the hard, tough matches out of the way early.
We are.
This
We
Milan one,
are.
another one on the road. So even coming away with a draw and looking at our first three big matches against teams all kind of up there for the Scudetto race, if you're able to walk out of it with 4 points out of 3 matches, very well done. So it is about the next two for me more than anything.
Yeah, same. No, I totally agree. Again, next two was a real sort of test for the team to bounce back and also get back on track in terms of points for that Milan game away, which will be tough. And we'll see how Milan looked like today. But again, a lot of promising signs here in the future. I do believe in Sadi. I do believe that he will make the right changes in terms of personnel. And I do think that Kamada, Rovella, the new players will only get better and more adjusted as the season goes.
Yeah, I'm hopeful. The signings have been good.
Yeah, so I you want to talk a bit again with Atletico Madrid as well. I'm of the same mindset as well of if we don't this isn't a must win for me. We can as long as we beat Celtic and who's the other one? Feyenoord. Celtic and Feyenoord will be in good shape to make it out of the group stage, which I think is a good goal and a good accomplishment. You good?
I'm struggling.
But it's more mentality than anything, and I do think it can be used as a launch point to help the team gain some confidence, get more reps together. We know working for Charlotte FC that players prefer to play games and train. So this is, the players should be lavishing this opportunity. They should be really excited for this. And it could also just more reps to get this guys together. Hopefully get Ravella more reps, get Pellegrini some more reps.
If that Champions League music doesn't hit and do something for you, then we've got questions of this team.
Yeah, bro. You need to rethink everything at that point. But yeah, I'm still feel good. I'm still in a good place mentally with the team as well. I'm not panicking yet. I don't think fans should either.
Yeah. So look, big one against Atletico this Tuesday. We'll be here to cover that match and and react with everybody. We'll likely do that the day after. Little bit of time to decompress midweek. But as always, thanks for tuning in. Continue to like, subscribe, share this podcast, help us grow. And as always, sempre Forza Lazio.